Okay. So talking to Christina Myers, who goes by Christina Myers Hepburn artistically, and I've known her since 2012, and we met at the LA Film Festival. Kind of a funny story itself. We'll talk about it. And then she went on to run like Grown Ass Men for a year or two with me, one of my podcasts, and she also was co-host of Pajama Party, another show, and then she had her own show called T&A, called Pushing Boundaries with T&A, which was about sexuality, and then it became T&A Talk Sex later, and then you were involved in my sitcom through three ridiculous shoots, and then the third time you co-wrote, co-directed, and yeah, so my life would be irreparably worse without you. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a good one. I guess I appreciate that. Yeah, I was
yeah.
like, well, certainly I was involved in a lot. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I know, right?
Does
It
it
was
speak
it
well of
was
me?
put a lot of time in. Oh, and you also helped me lose weight at one point. I put it back on. Now I'm losing again, but you helped me lose 94 pounds because of stepping in and helping me go to exercise group for a year. Anyway, so by the way, I'm driving now. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you sent me the license
Yeah,
photo.
I
That's
started
amazing.
driving. Oh my God, it's crazy. Anyway,
Well, it sounds like a lot
so
of positive changes. That's great.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, so first off, I guess I'll start with the beginning. My recollection was I was like totally not uh, concerned with how I looked. I was just there to watch movies and eat popcorn at the LA Film Festival, was minding my business, taking advantage of free soda in the press tent. And all of a sudden, you walked up, and I was like, and I literally, I swear to God, my impression was that you were so stunning to me that that when you said hi, I looked over my shoulder. I thought, "There's no way this person's talking to me." And then we wound up talking for like 2 or 3 hours, like right off the bat, and we became instant, like very close friends. And so I'm just wondering, like, do you remember that? And this isn't going to all be about me, but maybe there's a funny thing. Like, I'm
No,
trying to
it's
get
fine.
people's.
I remember
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I remember. I had just moved to LA. Oop,
Oh no.
my oh, it was my dog felt threatened by Cosmo the baby, and I think he was
Okay.
reaching for him with his
Uh
hands.
huh. Uh huh.
So the baby got a little scared, but everything's good. Sorry, Taco, you okay? Or everyone's okay? I mean, not that I just saw Cosmo was okay. Um, okay, back to you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I remember when we met, and I had just moved to LA, and so I definitely was looking to meet new people, and I had met a young woman at the festival, and we were talking, and then
Yeah.
she and I were kind of just wandering around, and I said, I think I said, like, he looks like a character. Let's talk to him.
Yeah.
uh, which I think, to me, I do like talking to interesting people, and I think you might have been even writing with your notebook,
I
So I was like,
was. I was. I was. I was immersed. I couldn't believe you were interrupting me. I was like, "What?" And then I looked, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And I looked over my shoulder, and I was like, "Oh, this is happening."
yeah, and then I think you said that you were doing maybe journalism for movies, or you were writing
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I was just looking to meet people that were working in film, and then I don't remember the details of our conversation, but it was interesting, and I was like,
Yeah.
you are the character that I thought you might be, and that
Yeah.
you were involved in a lot of different things, and you
Yeah.
had been in LA for a long time,
Yeah.
um, and we had a similar passion for film, a lot of favorite films and that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
comedy, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I stayed and chatted with you, and then I don't, how did it continue? I kind of, that part's hazy. I don't know. Maybe
Well,
you
I was already doing
invited me to
Radio
a
Titans.
screening.
I think Radio Titans had just started the Hollywood year, because that was 2012. And I probably just said, "Hey, would you co-host the Pajama Party with me?" Which probably sounded like like some sort of come on or whatever. But But
Well,
anyway, yeah,
maybe that's what happened, but yeah, maybe. I mean, I had done radio in New York. I'd been on a radio show, and so
oh, okay,
Yeah, so it was very normal to me, and so it felt like a perfect fit. Yes, okay, I remember, and the first recording studio was the one on Hollywood Boulevard, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's like coming back to me. So yeah, I mean, it was super fun, and we obviously had like good banter. So you inviting me, I was like, yeah, of course I'll do it. Like, let's go. Um,
Yeah.
and for me, it was almost more fun because it was more rooted in comedy and being myself. Whereas like my radio show in New York had been about arts and interviewing artists, but it was like more formal, kind of like, an NPR sort of buttoned up dialogue.
Yeah.
I was at Columbia University, so we were doing the radio show through them. Anyway, so you were like, it was great. It was like, yeah, I'm in LA to do comedy and be a part of that scene. So I remember,
Yeah.
I think one of the early shows you even had, you had Stephen Tobolowsky on.
Yeah, I know.
He wanted to talk about one of the books. And what's funny is I didn't really know, I knew of course his face from movies, but I didn't like know him well. And I actually was more interested in the fact that he was married to this playwright whose like monologue I used to do and like for auditions.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
yeah. And I was like, wow, that's so cool.
That's funny.
Instead of, he's in a lot of things. I mean, in some ways he's become more famous since then, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
of the TV show, Silicon Valley and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a favorite guest and is there a favorite memory from doing Pajama Party in Hollywood? I know it's kind of vague probably, but just in case you do.
Favorite guest at a Pajama Party. Well, maybe it's what I just said. Maybe my favorite guest was Stephen Tobolowsky. He's a great storyteller. He had this insane story about breaking his neck in Iceland and like going horse riding and like not knowing his neck was broken. Like it was just wild. Maybe that was just traumatic and I'll never forget because it was like horrible to hear. But also, I will say there was a band that you had that started coming in.
The Kids, right?
Name?
The Kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, I'm going to make a note while we're talking. Small Talk, yeah.
Small Talk, I love them, and they came in and they came out with one or two songs that were really sharp. Like I was like, that's radio ready, and obviously we're playing it on our radio, but like more commercial. I thought they'd really whatever. Were they gonna make? I thought they'd make it, but I thought they were great, and I loved them, and I thought they brought a lot to the show. I remember kind of bringing it to life more than us just talking. It was like, wow, now we have live music.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was cool. So then as far as we wound up in downtown later, and I don't know if you have any separate memories from that at all. The band wasn't there, but we did lots of other music guests. Huh?
The downtown radio station was more of like a carousel of characters. I felt like maybe because it was, I don't even know why. I guess by the time you were downtown, you had more shows, right? That you were so busy.
Yeah.
And even that was like when I finally came on with my own show idea with my co-host. And so that was like, you just had so many shows that people were passing through all the time. And then there was that radical feminist group that had a show too.
Snatch Power.
Yeah, which in a way I liked what they were doing. I remember my co-host kind of being like, they're too out there. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. And I was like, yeah, we could have them on. Like, let's have a conversation.
Did you have them on?
No, because I don't know. Well, here I am. I'm like, my co-host was not about it. And anyway, it's like you still have to live your life. So you, there's some things that you are trying for, and other things that are like, yeah, fine. Like I felt like if it wasn't a fit, then if everyone wasn't excited, I didn't push a lot. But no, the downtown station. I mean, I think what made it really amazing and special again was music. I mean, it was so amazing to have like just live musicians jamming all the time. For me, that made me really happy, and I love that about our show, Pajama Party, which frankly you did most of the band coordinating, right? So I would kind of show up and be delightfully surprised at whoever performed. And be like, this is fantastic. I'm, getting to have fun, and I loved working with Rena Hundert too.
I'm trying to find her. I'm trying to get her. Yeah.
I met Rena on on your show. That's actually how I met her, and she and I continued to do a lot of projects together after. And on the show, I had this character named Augustina Flaubert, who was like an over-the-hill supermodel. And like that was the character I would play, and she was sort of just older and bitter and jaded, and would smoke cigarettes while like talking about like the years when she was important. And so I remember Rena immediately jumped on with it and created like Burlap. What was her name? Burlap Jean or something, and she was like her supermodel roommate, like when they were in Italy modeling. And and so we did a couple of scenes together. I think on some of the early episodes we did like some sketches on the show as those characters. But so I don't know, there was all kinds of like hilarious things, and I think it was like a really great time for experimentation. It was like, oh, I have this idea, like, can I do it? And you were just, you were always game for it, so it was fun.
One thing that I realized today is how ridiculous it was for a guy with a sleep disorder to try and do a talk show at 10 o'clock at night on a Monday when he has to go to work the next day. So did I pass out a lot? Do you remember? I know there's one funny incident that I thought of earlier talking to another person where we had a guy named Greg Gilman, a musician that I love, who did the theme song for my sitcom pilot, and he played this beautiful song about dedicated to somebody who had died, and I had just lost a dear friend, and I closed my eyes to listen, and I genuinely was awake, and when the song was over, I couldn't open my eyes because I would have just poured tears all over the place. It just crushed me. But because my reputation with the sleep disorder, the fact that I stayed silent for like 5 or 10 seconds, everybody started going, "Oh my God, did he fall asleep?" And I have to pop my eyes open and go, "No, I'm crying." And anyway, I mean, you remember, did I ever fall asleep on the air?
Well, I feel like there were probably a lot of moments, right, where you asked a question and then someone was answering it and then you drifted off.
Oh no.
I'm trying to remember, like, I don't remember feeling panicked by it, but I feel like we would try and like talk over you. And I think Rena was really good about just waking you up. In fact, I kind of admired, like, you had a lot of patience in a way that I like learned from her. And then I was like, oh, okay, like, it's fine. Or it's kind of funny. I mean, there were, I think, a lot of moments where we would.
Yeah. So as far as your T&A show, how did that come about? And I mean, and also, do you think we can find Stephanie and have her talk?
Yeah, I mean, you need to remind me to do it because I have like pregnancy brain right now, and I just say things immediately after I say yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not an issue. It's her phone. I don't think her phone number changed. It's the same number.
But yeah, I might have it. Let me see.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to do a three-way message or just say that I already talked with you, and I'm sure she'd be happy to.
Any opportunity to do a three-way with T&A is welcome. Anyway. So how did that come about?
Yeah, our show. Well, we were doing the show with you. I had a background in radio, and meanwhile, my friend Stephanie and I had been sharing a lot of books with each other about relationships and communication and sexuality. I think we were both feeling certain frustrations in our own relationships and challenges. So I remember thinking the conversations were fascinating, and I thought, I'm not having these conversations with anyone else than her. And I was grateful for her depth and wisdom on those topics, and also humor. And so I said, let's, Carl's got this radio platform. Let's, maybe we could do a show there. And so it was kind of like you kind of had created this platform opportunity for me to bring that vision to life with her. And for me, it was like, the more she and I met, the more we started shaping the idea. And like you said, it actually started out being called Pushing Boundaries with T&A. So the idea was that it was sort of this, feminist dialogue about pushing boundaries, like what is, rather than assuming a lot of things about relationships that we do, like as the cultural program, we're like, why is that the rule? Like, what is monogamy? Why is that expected? Right? Like these kinds of things. And then finding kind of unique interviews. And in fact, our first guest was a sex worker who had just started talking about her own experience, her first experience with a client. And I remember we were really kind of scared, to be honest. We were like, it's controversial, and we were, and we didn't come out with our identities right away. We actually, that's why it was called with T&A, and we just go by T&A on the show.
And you were T and she was A, right?
Even our significant others and stuff, it was like, we just, everybody was like, wait, you're gonna go public about really taboo topics?
And were you T and she was A, right?
Yeah, that was because, so it's funny, I'm surprised how many people don't know it, but T&A is tits and ass. It's a thing that was like a saying in the 70s, and there's also like, I think a company that had created like the female body outline where you kind of see the boot, whatever, it's like a bodacious body. And so in a way we were kind of reclaiming the phrase and saying like, yeah, tits and ass because we're women, but we have voices too, right? We're on a radio show, so we're talking. And I happen to have a very ample bosom.
Yes.
On the camera, and Stephanie doesn't. My co-host, she's got more booty, so we went with I was T and she was A.
Okay. So then
that was the real origin point of it.
So do you feel you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish? I mean, is there something you're most proud of with that show, either overall or a particular episode?
Gosh, I'm very proud of the show that we did together, from pushing boundaries with T&A to T&A Talk Sex. I mean, it was just a continuation. And the shorter name was really for algorithmic like searchability. And I think always the goal was to like give people what we describe as like good food about sex and relationships and communication, but with humor and through topics that kind of, raise an eyebrow or make you, curious, and raise the pulse a little bit. And so I feel really proud of like opening that gate. I mean, to be honest, I remember when we Googled the word intimacy, nothing came up on Google. It was blank. Like, you couldn't search intimacy. I mean, the only sex shows online were I think like, I don't think even Playboy had their network up yet. I mean, it was a desert. I mean, it was literally a desert. And because you had started podcasting early, I was podcasting early, and we were like on the frontier. I mean, the only other show that existed at the time was Guys We Fucked.
That's what I was thinking,
and they had just started.
Yeah.
And we were kind of, it was like, and there wasn't really much else. I don't want to say nothing. I mean, there were some other shows, but there wasn't a lot on the landscape. I mean, Sex with Emily existed, but she also wasn't as big. She's, we've seen her grow as well. So it was just fascinating to be kind of in this empty terrain. And then now you can Google intimacy and all these words come up and all these resources and everything. So I feel like we contributed to that. And I feel like we pushing our own boundaries and getting past our own fears of, everything, right? Like we went to a conference and they were like, you're going to get stalkers, like men are going to try and kill you. And like, right. We were like, oh my God, are they? Nothing like that ever happened. In fact, I was actually amazed by not amazed, but I was very happy to see that people were receiving our show the way that I wanted them to, which was that they were growing and learning from it. And I felt like we were often really respected by the listeners and got a lot of interesting feedback, like where people wanted to know more or learn more or thought we were hilarious. So it was a lot, and I'm proud of all of it. I'm proud of them, the emails or the messages I get about people who I helped, we gave them an opportunity to kind of liberate themselves from ideas or loneliness around their sexuality. I feel proud of the concepts that we pushed through. I mean, even when the Harvey Weinstein thing was happening, we had some really interesting shows, with guests who brought up really kind of challenging topics. And I remember a cool detail about one person saying that her father, after all of this stuff coming out, like remembered two women from like when he was in high school or college and like called them, as like as a man in his 60s to like apologize.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, so just incredible stories. I mean, coming out from everyone from comedians to experts relationship coaches. I mean, it was just the gamut, and I was learning just as much as I was sharing.
What would you say? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, and we had this one woman on who talked about, she wrote a book about, she was an anthropologist and maybe also a sex worker, but she researched, I don't want to say orgy is kind of like a glam word, but sex parties. And she had this really fascinating topic around transgression and the fact that like humans set up rules and then humans break the rules. And like, that's basically like who we are. And so the fact that we're kind of consistently surprised that someone breaks the rule is like just the beginning, So there was a lot of fascinating concepts that just broadened my belief system about what we're capable of as humans, which I think then led to me becoming a professional cuddler, which then brought me a lot of media and its own thing. And hopefully I'll get that book done that I started, but.
Oh, great. Well, what about,
was that too much?
What would you say your most outrageous topic ever was?
What was our most outrageous topic? I feel like I'm kind of annoying when people, like when you ask that question, like what was most outrageous? And for me, I'm like, well, nothing was outrageous. We were about normalizing outrageous topics. So
yeah, sure.
It's like every topic was outrageous.
Okay.
No, but what was the most outrageous topic? I mean, we had some, maybe for me, I mean, I loved it. I was actually really curious about fire play and BDSM. And so I found someone who did it and he did a tutorial with me and I made video and I'm like, he's like lighting me on fire and then putting the fires out.
Are you serious?
Wild.
Oh my God.
I guess.
Okay.
Is that wild? Does that count?
Yeah, definitely. So here's something funny that you may not recall. I'm pretty sure I told you about it, but you didn't have to have a response to the situation. I just am wondering, what do you think of this? There was a woman early on at downtown that's still a dear friend of mine, and she's going to talk to me later today about being interviewed. And I just think this could be one of the funniest things in the movie is the contrast between you guys. And there was a show called Church of the Masses that lasted like 16 episodes before they go, this isn't the right home for us. And the thing was,
was Snatch Power still part of that?
Snatch Power became later. Church of the Masses was early on, like 16 episodes. You guys were on. And it was a show by two nationally known, respected Catholic women that are involved in film. And they were
that was very funny. I remember that. I remember you being very nervous. And I think they might have actually been paying clients, right?
Yeah, they were. And that was the funny thing that.
So you were like, please, like low profile. And I was like, I mean, sure. I don't think we ever tried to, I mean, the thing was that intent, like our show titles were transgressive by its nature, like the intention of our show. But I don't think that we were,
no, but there was one particular incident I want to tell.
Personal way.
No, there was one particular incident I want to tell you and get your reaction. Okay, so early on, we tried to stream like a real radio station where if you clicked into the website, you could either have a choice of finding a show of your choice, or there would be a constant stream 24 hours a day, and you could hear whatever was on randomly. And
it's still a great idea.
I know, and we may. Our plan is, regardless of whether this sells somewhere, we're hoping it'll get somewhere. It's a great story, the whole thing. But what we want to do, Jake's given me all the audio from Grand Theft Audio and the Hollywood year, which I've lost because he has it, and then I have 4 hard drives of downtown years and my apartment that I just shipped to Johnny O, and he's going to go through them and organize them, and we're going to organize it all, redo the Titans website, put everything that was good up, because some shows only had a couple episodes, whatever. And
going back to, I sidetracked you.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm about to get to it, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is we're going to put all that out there, and have it up there once and for all, even if it's for posterity's sake. But okay, so Barbara, um, the thing was, I wanted to have a channel. My philosophy that drives me was that I believe in free speech no matter what. And so I was like, I want to have liberals and conservatives. I want to have a Christian show, and I'll have TNA. I'll do, to me, it was all awesome. And so the thing was, Barbara was this prominent Catholic woman, and her co-host was Vicky something. And they one time when it was when the channel was streaming, like randomly, your episode of some sort wound up right after their episode, and it was
Hmm.
middle of the afternoon or something. So they had when they we had told them, oh, you're going to be on at this time, we didn't pay attention and realize that they would be followed by you. So the thing was, their show ends, their show about Christianity and movies, and then all of a sudden it's like, welcome to T&A Talk Sex, or pushing boundaries TNA, and it was some crazy topic like blowjobs or something, and
Yeah,
it
sure.
was within seconds. And then and so she calls me in a panic because all her like she said she got like 100 phone calls and texts going, "What is this? What are you doing?" And then the other thing was that we had a scroll of writing that always said, "Hey, catch this episode of this," or that. It was like a ticker. And we had one time, I to this day don't know how it happened, but most of the texts were small print and just flowed like a ticker. But for some reason, one time on another really out there episode of your show, the text blew up into like 36-point font instead of 10 or 12. And it was just this giant thing. And it also was right before or right after a mention of her show. And that was the second
Hilarious.
that was the second offense. And she calls me and she goes, "What is this? It's repeating over and over. My show followed by those women." And she wanted me to make it clear to you that she doesn't intend to be judging. She wasn't, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
just
but it was,
it's
yeah, it
just
just
a funny
wasn't.
contrast. And she goes, "I can't do this anymore. I have to quit because my listeners are going to kill me." And so
Yeah,
I'm
and to
just wondering
your
what's
point, like
the
we were trying to gain listeners by like, yeah, our early episodes were like a first time interview with like a sex worker,
yeah.
the sex worker's like first John or something. And then I think the next topic was, yeah, we did one that was I'm sorry, we'll pause for that.
Yeah, sure.
Um yeah, I think around that time when she was on, like there was a topic that was, I mean, in some ways they're obvious about sexuality, but yeah, it was like blowjobs, and one was like cunnilingus part 2. That might have
Oh,
been, I
that's
feel like
right.
that might have been the one that was in all
I
caps,
think
like
that was the one.
yeah.
That was the one that had the giant scroll. Because I remember going, "Oh my God, get that off!" And I'm yelling at everybody, and I'm trying to figure out how did
And
this
it's
get to be
about how
36.
people like are afraid to talk about cunnilingus and it's taboo in our culture and all this stuff, which is hilarious because it's exactly her audience, right? That is,
Yeah,
wants to not
exactly.
acknowledge it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we accidentally changed some hearts and minds of her community that were afraid to listen, but accidentally got a dose.
Well, maybe. But okay, so then let's talk about Grown Ass Men. Okay, so what happened there? The history was I started this with at Grand Theft Audio with Jacob Brandt, and it was three guys talking about all sorts of things under the sun, with all sorts of guests, famous and unfamous, like everything from Jacob Brandt's weed dealer showed up to mega stars. And so the thing was um, that when I broke up with them, I wanted a show that was similar, and I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to get a Latino guy and a black guy. So I got Sal Rodriguez and Clive Aiden, and I thought this is like the guy's version of The View is what we were going for, and and so the thing was, we had an amazing year of like every week on a Friday doing a 2-hour show, but then Sal decided that it wasn't going well for him. Like he just thought he got all he could out of it, and then
There's a long time.
Clive had issues that I won't address because it took pulling teeth to find him, and he's going to talk to me today about setting up an interview. And I promised I wouldn't talk about when he got fired. But anyway, so when Clive and Sal were gone, I switched to Ed Galvez and Maria Shahada, which I never understood. Maria insisted that it was totally fine to call grown-ass men still, even with her as a woman. She thought it was funny. So when she left, I asked you, and we just went ahead and kept it because it was whatever, it works. And so, any thoughts about doing that show? That was like a different vibe. It was meant to be like a funny morning show, and Pajama Party was funny, but it also had music sometimes that was super mellow, and it was meant to be like a late night chill vibe. But Grown Ass Men, I think we tried to really like be outrageous, and we had quite a few big stars would show up for that, but also a lot of young talent, etc. So I don't know, whatever memories you have from that, and is there like a favorite guest or incident?
Yeah, I agree with Maria Shahada that it was very funny to have the title still be that. And I think for me, I think maybe for us as comedians, it kind of struck a chord just in terms of less women being in comedy at that moment.
Yeah.
And so it kind of was like, yeah, whatever. Like, what's a grown ass man anyway? Sort of a play on it. So
Yeah.
I was honored to be a guest co-host on the show. And yeah, I remember actually having a really good episode talking about psychedelics. I think maybe that was really fun for me.
That's right. I don't remember who the guest was, or was it just the opening riffs?
Yeah, it might have been opening riffs, and then maybe Ed even joined in, and it was just in a way I liked the topics that came up on the show. It felt a little bit what was it? I don't know, maybe more focused. I mean, at that point you'd been doing, it's like, how many years had passed, so in some ways maybe you were kind of you were continuing to like fine tune and become even like more kind of honed with like
and it also helped that it was 10 in the morning, not 10 at night.
Well, so that helps you, right? To be up at 10 in the morning instead of 10 at night. I don't know. I mean, when does your narcolepsy hit the most?
Well, I don't know. It was just, I mean, late night was the worst always. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like that's when you're supposed to be sleeping.
Yeah. But do you have a favorite guest or two that you're like were you ever wowed, like, oh my God, I can't believe that I've just spent an hour or two with so-and-so?
I think did you have Shane Black on?
Yeah, we had Shane Black. I had him multiple times. I'm begging him to be.
I thought that was really cool. I mean, I was fascinated by, like his kind of, the films that he had made. I grew up watching. So that was like, it was just neat and fulfilling to be like, wow, and really identify like this through line of like what it means to make that kind of movie or who they are versus like, when you're growing up and you're just consuming it, it's almost like God, like you don't really know how or where it came from. So it's like, yeah, demystifying in a way. I think he was really impressive and interesting for me. I remember Paul Rodriguez coming on, and I know he's like a beloved comedian. I think he has certain like views and perspectives that I don't agree with, but I think it's still made for a fun show. All the more reason that to be on a show. I mean, I remember a listener giving me feedback that like the more there's like conflict or like the more you're disagreeing, there's kind of richness in the conversation. So,
yeah, I remember, and I was going to suggest Paul because we have a cute photo of the three of us with Paul, and it's one of my favorite photos from that show. But at the same time, I think you and Ed were just like, "Oh my God, this guy!"
Yeah, we're like, we don't like this person, or not. We don't like, but we're like, we don't like this person's ideas. We don't agree. Yeah, we don't agree.
So then about the sitcom, so the thing was, I created a sitcom idea based on my life as a reporter and podcaster who has a sleep disorder, and you were always part of it because you were one of the co-hosts of the show in real life, and we shot this thing 3 times. I don't want to knock any particular version of it because I'm Andre's going to be interviewed, and then I'm trying to make peace with the second director who I had probably as nasty a blowout with, and it was all my fault. Like, I'll explain off camera what happened, but I just called her today and left a message. And then the third time you stepped in with Gina, and it was, to me, pure heaven. It was such, I mean, I'm so proud of the third one. And and I, because I don't know how to actually go through and sell a show, I never figured it out. I came close. I got an agent and you an agent out of it, but then I wound up, like, because I'm clueless sometimes on how I come deal with people. I wound up upsetting her and losing her after a while. But point being that we did this thing 3 times, and it was guest starring Stephen Tobolowsky, and riffed on his performance in Groundhog Day. And the thing that was funny was the third time that Stephen agreed to do it, and he's one of Hollywood's busiest actors, and he kept showing up and doing it. And he told me the third time, Carl, third time has to be the charm. This is turning into real life Groundhog Day. And so I'm just wondering what your thoughts were about being dragged through 3 versions, again, without knocking the directors directly. Any other aspect, if you thought I was crazy or an idiot or whatever, or what's wrong with this guy, that's fine, but I don't want to knock them. But anyway.
Sure. Yeah, that was, I guess, a long journey. I mean, in some ways, early on, I was just coming in to play certain scenes, right, that you had written.
Yeah.
As the comedian that was also on the show. And I had studied film, so I guess in my back of my head, I just had certain opinions about how it could be shot, or a certain quality that could be met. And early on, I think it was almost more just like an equipment issue, like, which we all struggle with, like trying to make stuff in LA. It's like getting the access to the best gear.
Yeah, I had no budget the first time, so I'm going to talk about that and take the blame myself. But yeah, progressively, yeah.
I think without, like you're saying, it's not so much. I think it's just process. I mean, in a way, you could look at those early ones as like first drafts, right? It's like you did one, and you kind of rewrote it, and then there was like improvement there, and then this like last version was you gave me the opportunity to say, hey, let me take a jab at this third iteration draft, and even do another draft of that. And I chose to co-direct it with Gina Levy because she has a lot of filming experience as well, and I just like working with her. So it was really fun to banter with her and help even fine-tune some of the jokes, and that you had already created the base for as well. And so it felt like a fun creative process. And then Gina had, or I think even you had actually coordinated. Yeah, we kind of got like a stronger gear and crew all together in general. Yeah. And I mean, I think I remember most like Stephen Tobolowsky having to like pull on and off this like sweaty bear costume over and over again for like the takes that we did in a garage. And then I think, he ad-libbed at one point that was like, it's a little sweaty, and he like handed it over to you.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious. So it was really fun. It was fun filming that one. I mean, I loved the scene in the comedy club, and we had Stephen ad-libbing, and then I love the scene where we had, you doing your stand-up, and then people start throwing their stuff at you from the audience, onto the stage. So I thought it was all really funny. I mean, I don't know. Whoever you choose is kind of the director, I guess it'll take on that lens, but I feel like maybe I took it to a little bit more of like an absurd, and maybe even a little bit of like wry humor.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. It was super fun in the end, and Stephen was a real trooper. And also, a lot of people love the female comedian that played the boss in the opening scene.
Oh, she's awesome. Yeah. Kira Sultanovich.
Yeah, Kira Sultanovich, right?
Yeah. I thought she was the funniest one in the movie. Yeah, in the show.
Yeah, a lot of people loved her, and she was really funny. And that scene, I remember you had secured a location through, I don't remember if it was a friend, but it was like an office.
Yeah, it was my best friend's dad's office.
Okay, well, I want to say, so we get to the best friend's dad's office that apparently we didn't know hadn't been used since like 1990. And literally everything like had been preserved from then. Nobody had moved anything. So it was like old computers, like fax machines, like old technology in a storage space kind of way. Like it was cluttered and crowded. And Gina basically had a panic attack. I think you might have had a panic attack too. But fortunately, I had actually been doing all these low budget, like indie films with Joe Black. And so I'd seen Joe. I mean, I learned a lot from Joe. And this shoot showed me how much I'd learned from him, because Gina was like, we're done. We can't even do this. And and the comedians are outside rehearsing. And of course they're like, they have a job. They're all known comedians. I mean, you had Ron,
Dwayne Perkins and Kira.
Dwayne Perkins and Kira. And then who was the other one?
Was those three were playing my bosses, and all three of them are Tonight Show comics. And so it was I lucked into a really good cast, and it almost collapsed right there.
Well, so we had them sitting in the waiting. We were like, just wait in the lobby. And Gina's, melting down. And I said, Gina, we just have to film a corner. So we need to make the corner look like an office. And we're like hurling boxes, this way. And there's like dust everywhere. And like, we're like sweating, like the place. And we don't want anyone to get nervous either. So we're like, we've like locked the door, and she and I are like single-handedly like throwing stuff and making it look like an office space. I think one of the tables is actually like an architecture drafting board. So if you touched it, it would like fly upwards, but we made it flat table. And we were like, don't touch anything as the actor. Like it's all cardboard. Anyway, but they got through it. And I think that scene is really funny, and Kira's hilarious in it. She's, bossing them around, and the set works. And I think, anyway, so it's just those funny moments in filmmaking, where nobody knows that what's happening behind the scenes.
So I don't want this to be about me and self-aggrandizing, but it's just it is a point that, there was John Eder, the guy who took all the fancy portraits of everyone that I'm praying are on these hard drives. I'm not sure. We've lost them otherwise, because he doesn't have them anymore. But remember when we took all the shots of everybody in front of the banner of Radio Titans? Okay, well, John the photographer, I reached out to him, and he's I might even open the whole show or movie with him talking, because he said that in his perspective, he thought what was going on at Radio Titans was revolutionary and ahead of its time for, how open people's access to power was, and ability, that I literally left the door open 24/7 in downtown, especially. And I was incredibly lucky that nobody ever broke anything. Nobody ever robbed anything. I mean, it literally was 24/7. That door was open, and hundreds of people came through of all types.
Well, some people were like living in the other room for a little while.
Oh yeah, I know, right? There were 6 rooms, and 3 people lived in 3 different rooms out of the 6.
Very funny.
Yeah. So anyway, point being that John said, that this is what the country needs now. Like he's hoping that this film can work out, and that we can get awareness of what we did, because he said everybody's so divided and fragmented now. And he thought it was odd that this Catholic Republican white guy was so willing to let all types of people come through and talk about anything they thought was important. And so just wondering if you have any thoughts about either me or the idea of, do you see it in that way at all, that, we were able to unite people at a time when right as things were about to get so fragmented?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think it's true. I don't know, you call yourself a conservative Republican, and I think sometimes we do have conversations where I think, really? Is that what he thinks? I don't think I even always entertain, I'm like, I don't even have time to unpack and debate with you why I think I guess it's talk about why I disagree. And I don't. But I find that you, as the person that I know, do have a great respect for the individuals and how people see things, and bringing a child into with my friend Cosmo.
Okay.
Hi. So I think that you do have a strong respect for people's stories and life experiences. I mean, your whole history as a journalist, I think, speaks to that. And if anything, maybe I would think you were curious about learning also, that each person was bringing in something that you didn't know, and you were growing from all of the different characters and types that came in. And I was growing. I mean, I grew from all the people that I met through your show. It was unique, and it was expansive and colorful. Yeah, I mean, I think, you earlier, had mentioned one time on the phone, I think you did say, like, why did you keep like showing up and doing these projects with me? Even when chat, like they fall apart, or like they end up being crazy, or they don't go the way we thought they would. And I actually gave it real thought, Carl. I was like, it's like, when you put it that way, I'm not really sure. And I was like, ooh. And then I thought about it, and I actually thought, I think it's because I actually really respect you, and I really think that you.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. I think that I really saw that you care about people, and I think that you always showed me respect in that way. And
absolutely.
And I think that you had your heart and mind in the right place of like what you wanted to create. So I support that, and I show up to support that. And some things succeed, or whatever success is, right? Some things blow up and kind of have that vision that you have, and other things don't. But I think there's still success in the completion of the project. It's like these things happened, and we're done, and relationships developed and formed. And like I said to you, I went on to make more things with Rena. I went on to do shows with Ed. I went on to, so like your petri dish of people that you were constantly putting together, blossomed in a million different ways that go beyond you.
Okay.
I used to run into Clive all the time, actually, which I thought was kind of funny and cool.
Kyle Cease?
I know Clive Vaden. Like, I just see him on the street. Like, I feel like I bumped into him like regularly. Like, I'd be like, "Oh, Clive," and I think people would be like, "How do you guys know each other?" So you really brought different worlds together, and I've always loved that. And that's another thing that I think attracted me too, to always working on stuff with you. It was like, oh, like, what is this different environment that I'm in, and who are these different people? And so yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, and one last question I almost forgot about. I want to talk about when Me Too blew up. I think within 3 weeks, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks, I got you and Erica Schickel and Leah Knauer together, and I just let y'all tell your stories as 3 women. What is your perspective on how bad is sexual harassment in Hollywood and the book world, which Erica was from, etc. And you guys told some pretty powerful stories. And so I just reached Erica. I'm not sure if I'm going to Leah or not. I probably will, but that was pretty much my only Titans interaction with her. But I want, if I could get you to talk about, the experience of getting to talk about that so fast in the Weinstein Me Too era. I mean, I think I jumped on it way ahead of the curve in by at least a couple months, I think.
Yeah. I remember doing the Me Too interview on your show with Erica and Leah. And I think, what's funny is, Leah now has her own show called Basic Witches. And they just recently came out with another show about different sexual harassment issues, and actually name Chris D'Elia, for example.
Oh, wow.
And and I guess I think he came out with some stuff that he's working on due to harassment claims. But I don't know the whole story. So, but I share that because I think, every time we were given a chance to talk about it and validated by someone beyond ourselves, I mean, Stephanie and I did an episode as well on our own podcast, but to then also be invited to do it on another show with you, is again just validating and reaffirming that there's room for our voices, right? And that it's powerful and that people want to hear about it. So I tell myself that even Leah now having her own show and kind of still following this thread, maybe I'm speaking for her, but I think for myself, as much as what I'm seeing reflected in her is like these moments like on your show are like seeds for us to have a stronger voice. And to believe in ourselves. I still remember talking with Erica. Her stories were really powerful and fascinating. And she is a little bit older than Leah and me.
Yeah.
And I saw recently she has published, I think, 1 or 2 books recently.
Yeah, she's on a roll.
Yeah, and she was clearly such a bright mind and intellectual, and just had so many kind of incredible life experiences. And I remember her saying that like her family they were like family friends with Woody Allen and like their family. And so that's like a hot topic or controversial topic. And so it was really powerful to get to talk with her and kind of feel her power and her strength in the face of all of this stuff. So I think it was great. I mean, I always appreciated your willingness to talk about the real stuff. And kind of again on this platform that was uncensored, right? There isn't any rule. It's, you can't not talk about anything. I mean, that was the beauty and power of podcasting, right? It was like, wait, we can just put on airwaves whatever we want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's everything that I could think of. So, good luck with the baby. My gosh. So it's supposed to go let me stop it. Hang on.